Joining us now on our Book Talk segment, we welcome author of a really interesting book. Anybody been out in Las Vegas or watched the poker on television? Here's a man that started it all. It's called Blood Aces, The Wild Ride of Benny Binion, the Texas gangster who created Vegas poker. We're joined by the author, Doug J. Swanson, investigative reporter for the Dallas Morning News. He joined us by telephone. And Doug, good to talk with you. How are you?
I'm great, Doug. How are you?
I'm doing great, yeah. Really had wanted to look forward to once I found out this book was available and I had a chance to talk to him. A big Vegas fan myself, and I've been to Binion's a couple of times, walking through that part of downtown, old-time Las Vegas, and here's a guy that kind of really started it all, didn't he, back in the heyday?
Yeah, he was one of the founding fathers of modern Las Vegas, and he started the Horseshoe Casino in downtown Vegas in the early 50s. It's called Binion's now, but it's not part of the Binion family anymore, but right. You can still get a sense, if you walk through it, what the old Horseshoe was like. I mean, the old Horseshoe was a gambling place. They didn't have bands, they didn't have singers, they just had gambling, and that's where you went in Vegas if you wanted to be a high stakes gambler.
Yeah, we went down there just to kind of walk around old Vegas and walked into some of those old places, and you're right, it has that feel. I'm sure it's a little more modernized than what they had back in the 30s and 40s, but you get that feeling.
Right.
It's not the glitzy entertainment Vegas. It's old school Vegas.
Exactly. I think maybe some of the carpet hasn't been changed since
that's right.
The place was built.
Well, they had the $2.99 steak dinner when I was there. I don't know, that's a few years ago now, so they still had that available.
Well, that was one of Benny's trademarks, and some of the steak used to come from his Montana ranch, but you could always get a good steak dinner there. You could get some good whiskey. He used to say, good food, good gamble, good whiskey, and that was the key to his success. That, and he would say, treat the little people like big people. So if you came in there, it didn't matter if you were a senator or you were a farmer. He treated you just the same.
So what brought you to write about Binion? You're based in Dallas. I know, reading the book, Binion grew up in that area, right?
Yeah, and I've been hearing about Binion for years, and I had covered the World Series of Poker for the Dallas Morning News, so I was familiar with him, and I then realized that there'd never been a full biography of him, so I started looking into it, and what emerged was this really fascinating guy with a lot of stories about him that had never been told, so I was off to the races then.
He started out in the Dallas area in gambling halls, kind of as an entrepreneur of sorts, right? I mean, maybe not on the up and up, but he was an entrepreneur.
He started as a bootlegger, then he got into the lottery business, the illegal lottery business.
Policy games. I never heard that before.
Yeah, policy.
Yeah.
Lucky numbers. And then he got into the dice business. That was his big break, and that's where he really started his gang, his racket. He controlled all the gambling in Dallas, and he did it by buying off the cops and then killing his enemies. That was his formula for success.
That's the way they did it in Texas in those years.
Sure. I mean, it was the Wild West back here, and back in the 30s and 40s, I know Dallas is seen now as a conservative business-like place, which it is. But back then, it was crazy. They were having shootouts in broad daylight downtown. They were blowing up each other's cars. It was nuts.
Yeah, he's a guy that barely went to school, and you talk about it in the book. When he eventually went to jail, they did some tests on him. Not the highest IQ in the world, but somehow he had a business sense, right?
Oh, he was a genius, I think. He could barely read or write, but his genius was being able to read people and read situations and figure out how to bring his enemies into his sphere of influence, whether it was by bribes or by threats or by charm. However, he did it. He controlled the situation. And here was a guy who could barely write a sentence, but he made millions and millions of dollars. He at the end of his life was considered a major civic figure in Las Vegas. He was beloved in Las Vegas for his philanthropic efforts. He was by any measure a tremendous success. And he came out of nowhere and never learned to read or write. And that's really striking to me.
Being able to read people was his strength, right? And able to manipulate the system or make it work for himself.
Yeah, and figure out who to intimidate, who to eliminate, who to charm. I mean, that was his gift.
Eliminating people, that's what put him in the jail the first time, right? I mean, for the long stretch.
Well, yes and no. I mean, they've been after him for a long time, and like Al Capone, they figured out that the best way to get him was tax evasion. They had raided his enterprises here in Dallas and figured out that while he was making about $1 million a year, he was only reporting about $2,000 in income. So they pounced on that and put him away, put him in Leavenworth for a few years. But he emerged, and he got his casino back and did extremely well. It's really a story of redemption in a way, maybe redemption and persistence, and never abandoning the old formula of charm and intimidation.
Now, what got him to Vegas? Because when he went there, it really wasn't Vegas yet. I guess, was that before the Bugsy Siegel building the Flamingo, or around the same time?
He came in right as Siegel was opening the Flamingo.
Yeah.
He, in fact, attended the opening night, which, of course, was a huge bust because the weather was bad, and the Flamingo started losing money right away, which is why they killed Bugsy Siegel. But he was right there, Benny was right there with that wave of mobsters coming in the late 1940s, early 50s, really making the modern Las Vegas that you see today. And back then, there was just not much there. A few places downtown on Fremont Street and a couple of places out on the Strip, but it was still a little desert town with not much to it. And they turned it into what you see now.
What made him successful in Vegas? Was it getting the casino was the best at the time, or what made him, take the lead when he opened his casino?
Well, the Horseshoe was a pure gambling joint. It didn't have bands, magicians, Siegfried and Roy type stuff. You never saw that at the Horseshoe. It was just pure gamble. So if you wanted to come in and put down $500,000, $1 million on the single roll of the dice, that's where you did it. That was his calling card.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned in the book, you went in there and he would take whatever your first bet was, no matter whatever you said. It could be $1 million. He would take that bet, right? No limit.
Yeah, your first bet was your limit. That was it. And he knew that eventually he would win. As I said, he was not all that gifted in scholarly pursuits, but he could count. And he knew that ultimately he was going to get that money back.
And you talk about some great characters in the book, like the sheriff out there. They did a TV show about him a couple of years ago, only lasted a season, about Sheriff Ralph Lamb. So he was one of the guys that Binion dealt with. And I guess there was some kickbacks going on there as well, right?
Yeah, maybe. I think they called them loans.
Yeah,
right. Never repaid. That was the term that was used. Yeah, that was left out of that show. I watched that show a few times. I kept waiting for the character to go down to the Horseshoe and get his cash bonus for that month. So that didn't happen.
Yeah, they made him out to be a hero in the TV show. You didn't hear about it. You're right about all this other stuff.
Yeah, in real life, they tried to prosecute Ralph Lamb on that, and they put Binion on the stand, and he said, "Oh yeah, of course I give old Ralph a little money now and then. I do it for the influence." That's just the way Benny worked. That was his MO.
Of course, the thing that most people know now is the poker tournaments, which kind of died down a little bit now, I guess, not as much on TV, but for a while it really exploded, the poker thing, and he started that back in, what, the late 60s?
Yeah, late 60s, early 70s with the first one. He brought in a handful of the biggest poker players in the country and put them on display there at the Horseshoe. It was just supposed to be a stunt. He hoped people would come in and watch them play and then would wander off to the other tables and lose at blackjack and dice. It was really just a promotion. He never envisioned that it would take off the way it did. Benny's fondest hope was that maybe he would get 50 people playing in the tournament. But now, of course, there are thousands playing. It's international, millions of dollars in prize money. It just it took off.
It's a really fascinating story. It's called Blood Aces, The Wild Ride of Benny Binion, the Texas gangster who created Vegas poker. And you got some great stories in the book about all these characters, some shady, some good, and some are both. But it must have been a lot of fun for you to write.
Yeah. Oh, it was a great fun. It's my sixth book, and the first five were misery, but this one was a delight because it was such a great character and so much to explore and a great story and really interesting history. I had a great time doing it.
Doug, you have a website you want to direct people to, get more information, or get a hold of you?
Yeah, I'm at www.dougjswanson.com, or I'm at the Dallas Morning News. People can contact me there. The book is out in paperback this week, so it's available at all your finest independent bookstores and Amazon.com and all the usual spots.
Great. Doug, I know you grew up a little bit north of us up in Tampa, so for those people that knew you, I'm sure they'll be happy to hear your voice again, but thanks for joining us, and hopefully we can talk to you again.
Thank you, Doug. I had a great time.
If you'd like to order the book we're talking about, please go to DougMilesMedia.com and enter the author's name in the Amazon search box. Thank you for listening. Please come back soon for more conversations here at DougMilesMedia.com. This has been a presentation of Doug Miles Media, all rights reserved. You can listen to or download previous programs at iTunes, Stitcher.com, or Doug Miles Media.